Hey, today we're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you live on my iPhone using Safari on iPhones. So that there's a couple of tips here. So let's understand Safari as a web browser. It's a web browser application, and a web browser is there to open up web pages. So when you use the internet and you open up websites and web pages on those sites, you are using software and software app called a web browser. So Safari is included with iOS, the mobile operating system that comes with iPhones and iPads. And sometimes they'll call the iPad operating system now iPad OS. They're making some variations on it. And it's included with all Apple Macs. It's included as part of the operating system. Microsoft does something very similar. They include the Edge browser with Windows 10. And you'll find that Google with Chromebooks includes the Google Chrome browser, but it doesn't mean you can't install other browsers. But Safari is just standard, and that's what people tend to use, is what comes in and gets shipped with it. So when people are looking at these things and they want to know what to use, some things like it doesn't come and it's not available for download with Windows anymore. You can't download it for Android. Safari actually is not included with the Apple Watch, although there are ways you can visit some web pages with Apple Watch. But Safari is not the way you do it. And Safari is also not included with Apple TV. So it's designed for a web browser used with iPhones, iPads, and Macs. But it's really common and a lot of people like using it. Okay, so let me change something here with annotation. There we go. And scroll through here. So the navigation, and I've got a link that is sent out in the email that has these illustrations on them for you to be able to identify and look at. So when you're looking at the top here, the search and address field, that's where you enter a web page or you do a search. It's a text field that does both functions. So instead of having a separate text field for searching and a separate text field for entering a web page address, it is one text field on Safari for doing both. When you first open Safari, you might see a web page you were browsing, or you might see something called the favorite screen. The favorite screen typically opens up when you clear out any information up here in the search, and it shows you web pages that you've bookmarked and favorite. And of course, Apple always has Apple as a favorite, but you might have added others over time as well. Your favorites and my favorites will look different, but that's a category of bookmark that shows up on this screen. There are some arrows at the bottom here, so let's take a look. If you want to go back or forward in a web page, there's back and forward arrows. There's a button for sharing, and we'll go through that and show you what that means. There's a bookmarks button, and there's a tabs button. So these buttons are at the bottom. Now they will disappear sometimes when you navigate through a web page, but if you swipe up or down, typically they'll reappear. So again, the search and address field, the favorite screen, the back and forward arrows, the share button, the bookmarks button, and the tabs button. And all of these have a lot of features available to them that can be used. So one of the things that you can do with tabs is you can keep web pages open for faster access. That means that when you have a web page open, you don't have to close it. You don't have to close that web page in order to go back and visit it. You can actually keep web pages you have open before and visit them on an ongoing basis. And you can have an unlimited number of tabs. There's no limit on how many tabs. They don't use up memory. They don't take up resources. And so if you visit a number of web pages frequently, one of the ways to look at your history very quickly is to use the tabs function. There's a plus sign when you're looking at tabs. Now, when you tap the tab button on your home Safari screen, it brings up this information. The plus button here at the bottom gives you the ability to add a new tab if you want to. And the X on a particular web page closes that tab. It doesn't mean you can't go back and visit that web page. It's just that you're going to have to tap in the address or go and visit it in some other way. And then private allows you to do private browsing. It won't let cookies track you, and it won't keep anything in your history. So you can always do that from the tab button. Bookmarks are a way you can find things later on that you might want to go and visit. And there's 3 sections to the bookmarks. There's Bookmarks, which is a tab when you open it up on the home screen, and bookmarks will show up. You'll see something called a reading list, and you'll see history. History is just that. It's your most recent history of your browsing. The reading list shows you items that you have saved in your reading list. The reading list is something that the Safari uses to actually save web pages on your iPhone so that you can read them even if you don't have an internet connection. And I use it a lot because I like to go through, and it actually keeps track of a history of web pages you've read. Uses up very little memory. And then bookmarks is a way to organize your web pages. Some people like to bookmark a lot of them, but this is where you'd find your favorites and other types of sections that you've created. You can categorize your bookmarks if you want to as well. So that's bookmarks. Okay, the share button. The share button is this icon right here. It's pretty common. It's used by a lot of people in a lot of ways, and so the share icon is really, really frequently used in a lot of applications. It's used in photos, it's used in messages, it's used to send things out, and really what it does is a number of functions here. So it actually creates some things. It sends out a link if you want to send that web page to someone and share it with someone, but it'll send the link to them. It doesn't send the full copy of the web page. It sends a link to that web page, and you can send it in a message, in an email. You can copy the link, or you can print the web page. You can add it to the reading list, and there's more options. You may have other applications installed that may change and make your share options a little bit different than other people, but that's how you get that web page from your phone or other, your iPad or your Mac. How you get that web page out somewhere else is you use the share button. So those are some things. There's another feature called the text size button. When you open up a web page, sometimes in this field up on the top, you'll see a message that shows up very quickly that says Reader View Available. That gives you some indication that on that web page, there are more options available to you for how you might want to view that web page. When you get a reader view available, typically what will happen is the web page will pop up with a set of characters, a small a and a large a. And if you tap on that, it brings up a pop-up menu. And they've added a few things in iOS 14. Whenever Apple introduces a new operating system, and I know Miriam Fernandez is doing an update on iOS 14 in one of her lessons coming up soon. But whenever Apple introduces a new operating system, they introduce approximately 250 new features in all of their apps, not just on the main screens and other things. And so they've added a few things here in Reader View that didn't exist before. So you've got a small a and a big A. You can change the text size. You can show Reader View, which takes out ads and just shows the photos and the text in a simple format. Apple introduced a Translate app, and so this option, Translate to Spanish, showed up because I was using it to translate to Spanish. You can hide the toolbar, which is this top section here. You can request a desktop website. Okay, websites are available in views that are designed for desktops, which are more a landscape horizontal view, like my slide here. But iPhones have what's called a portrait view, which is a narrow view, and not as much can show up. And so websites sometimes have the ability, depending on the website owner, and most people have it now, they have a different appearance for how they look on a mobile device, like a smartphone, than how they look on a desktop. but sometimes you need to go to the desktop site to find something, and so you can always request that. There are some functions for website settings, and there are some functions for a privacy report. The privacy report, I've read some reviews about this. It basically tells you that it stopped things from tracking you, but it doesn't give you any options for changing any settings, but it'll give you a report on what's going on. So it's pretty good for that. Now, Safari also works with Apple's cloud called iCloud. And you can synchronize data such as your bookmarks, your reading list, your history, and also passwords. Safari will encrypt and keep track of passwords you use to log into websites as well. So when you have a tablet, an iPad specifically, or you have a desktop, a Mac specifically, or you have an iPhone, you are able to synchronize your settings through iCloud. And all you have to do is turn on iCloud, and as long as you have an internet connection, those settings will synchronize across your devices. It's really handy sometimes if you bookmark something on your phone when you're out, say, waiting in an office or sitting down, and you say, gee, I'd like to read that web page later, and you bookmark it. Your bookmarks will be identical on your iPads, and so you can go back and find them across multiple devices or on your Mac. So it's really easy. You don't really worry about what device you set things up on, because it's going to take care of transferring everything through iCloud for all of your devices. That synchronization is really convenient for people. All right, so you should see my iPhone screen, right? Okay, everyone seeing that? Great. Okay, so I've got a lot of apps, okay? So don't worry about all of them, because I think I have over 200 apps installed on my phone. But you can see at the bottom here, I've got a phone app. Let me get my annotation working here so I can spotlight this a little bit easier. At the bottom, I've got my phone app, my calendar, my email app, and this is the Safari icon for the Safari app. So when I tap the Safari app, I can't show you my finger, but I will tap it with my finger. I bring up the last web page I was looking at, and it happened to be bobology.com. If I take this information here and I tap in that text field, you can see there's an X that pops up, but you can also see that my favorites popped up. So whenever you want to see your favorites, you can just tap in the text field of that. I can cancel this by tapping cancel. So I'm going to repeat that one time. This is the last web page I was looking at. And if I want to go to my favorites, I can just tap in the text field and I can X that out, and I can type something else in. So if I wanted to type in Microsoft, I could type in Microsoft, and I'd get some suggestions here for Microsoft, and it would search Google. Okay, so whenever you type in something in the search bar or address bar, it will type in and do Google. That's spam phone coming in. My spam blocker didn't catch that. So what ends up happening is that you end up seeing search results from a web page, and just tap on any page and you'll see. So this is an ad from Microsoft. It says ad. This is Microsoft's home page. And whenever you tap on a blue link, typically links are in blue, it'll open up something, but you might see some drop-down arrows as well. You can see at the bottom, I've lost my navigation on Safari, but if I tap on anywhere on my phone, this navigation pops up again. So I'm going to click out of this message, and I'm going to go to my tabs here. Okay, if I tap tabs, it shows you all of the web pages that I was looking at recently. I can go to Apple, I can go to Google, I can go to Bobology, I can go to Zoom, I can go to the last one I was looking. These are tabs, just like they're file folder tabs that you might have in a file cabinet, so that whenever you want to go from one web page to another, it's very quick to do in Safari. You don't always have to type in the address. So if I want to go to Google, I could tap on Google. I could go and tap on the tab button again, and I could go to my website. I could tap on the tab button again, and I can go to Apple. So I can switch very, very quickly. It's a productivity and speed increasing tool, because normally on a desktop, you would have tabs that would actually be at the top of your browser. But there's no place at the top of the browser to show tabs on an iPhone. So this button down here shows tabs. If I wanted to open up a new tab, you don't have to close tabs. They don't use up any memory. They don't use any resources up. There's an unlimited number of tabs you can have open. So it's possible to just leave them and not worry about them. If I want to open up a new tab, I tap this plus button at the bottom. That opens up my favorite screen, and I can type in a website. So say I wanted to type in, let's try something like Best Buy, okay? And it'll do a search, and I can just type and select one of the items, and it brings up search results for Best Buy, and I can say, okay, I did want the official site. Let me open up that. And so now I've got Best Buy. I don't care about location at this time. So now if I go down to my tabs button again, I'll see I've got Best Buy, but I still have the Microsoft site, my Zoom site, Bobology, Google, and Apple. And this list just keeps on building, the more you open up websites. So one way to rapidly navigate, from one website to another, if you're going between two websites, gee, I'd like to check something and do something else. I want to check prices between Amazon and Best Buy or Costco or something else. And you can switch rapidly back and forth by using tabs to do that. Makes it very, very productive for a lot of people. Okay, so that's tabs. The other thing that's on here is this view called this letter sign, AA. If I tap on the characters up on top, I will see my menu that shows me a little a and a big A. So if I want to enlarge the text on this site, I can tap the A until it gets bigger. Or if I want to, reduce the size, and now it tells me I'm on 150%. So one way to make a web page bigger, and I'm sure we'll cover that in some of the talks eventually, but you can change something in your settings, but also within your browser. If a web page is just too small to read or too big to read, you can do that. You can actually go less than 100% if you want to. And I'm just tapping on the little a and the big A to change my size here. So that's a note. The other, I could translate this site to Spanish because that's the language I had set up. I can hide the toolbar that hides this information, go to the desktop, set up some website settings that has to do with tracking, and then see the privacy report. So that's one thing you can do with this A. And I'll show you something on my tab that is helpful. So on my web page, I have a tab here, but you'll see show reader view is not in black, it's grayed out. So this web page does not have a reader view, but it's just the kind of web page it is. But if I go to the article here that I sent out with the newsletter and I click on that link, you'll see this message, reader view available, and disappears. So I can now tap on the letters here and I can say show reader view. And it changes how the web page looks. It puts it in bigger text and changes the format of the web page to make it easier. Now I'm just swiping up and down with my finger here to move, and you'll see that this little a, big A reader view is actually highlighted, and I can unhighlight it and hide reader view. You can actually change your fonts. You can change some of the colors if you prefer a dark background or a kind of an ivory colored background. You can do that as well. So that's what that set of little A's does. And I'm just going to hide the reader view here. So the other thing is that if I see this website and I say, I'd really like to share some of this information with somebody, I tap the share button at the bottom, and that share button opens up options. So I can share it. Macs have a tool and Apple has a tool where I can share things between my phone and my Mac very easily. I can send messages to people. I can airdrop it if I want to. I can send it as a text message. So if I click on text message here, it just asks me who, and it includes the illustration and a link to that message. So if I just wanted to send it to myself, for example, I could do that, send it, and it'll pop up as a message in my message folder here. So that share button gives you the ability also to add it as a bookmark or add it to favorites, which it means whenever you blank out the text field in the search bar, you'll be able to see that on your favorites. You actually can search for text on a page. If you're looking for a particular word and you're doing a little more research, you can search actually on a web page and limit your search to just what's on that web page. And you can add this website link to your home screen. If you go to a website really frequently and you want to have it as an icon, just like an app icon on your home screen, you can do that and it'll add that icon to your home screen. So there's lots of options available for you to be able to send things out. This depends on what applications you have available. Okay, so the reading list, if I wanted to save this web page that I'm looking at to the reading list, I can tap on the share button. And one of the options I have is to add to reading list right here. So I tap on that, add to reading list. Now, let's say I go to a different web page. I go to Google, I go to Apple, and I say, I'm relaxed now. I'm done, browsing the web. I want to go to my reading list. So what I do is I go down to my bookmark tab right here. I tap that. And at the top, I see three buttons. One is the Bookmarks tab. The other is a set of glasses for the reading list. And the other is History. So I'm in the reading list. I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult for myself. I'm going to tap on Bookmarks, and I'm going to just open up the Bookmarks tab again, because you don't always have reading list selected. So if you access reading list here, you'll see web pages that you saved in your reading list. So this page is what I saved. So when I tap on the link there, it opens up the page I saved on the reading list. Now, if I go back to the reading list, one of the things I can do is I can swipe from right to left. So if I swipe from right to left, I can delete that from the reading list. So let me show you that. Again, let's say I find an article on the web. Let's go to, I know my web page, how it works. Well, let's say we find some things here that we want to look at. And I take another article, the one about technical support that I had last week. And I want to save that to the reading list. I tap the reading list share button, tap add to reading list. It will stay in the reading list, and it's actually available for me to view when I'm offline. But you can see here's the article in the reading list. So that one of the classes, Tech Talks I'm going to do is about training. So I'm collecting some training sites here that have information. So Atlas Obscura is one of them. So it's another way to save things in the reading list. So if I want to read it, I can just tap it. It brings up the web page, and I can view it again whenever I want to. So that's my personal preference. But other people do some other things. If you go to the Bookmarks tab here, it lets you organize your bookmarks. You can, the favorites is right here. So you might have to go back and navigate, but if you look at favorites, here's the favorites I have. And I can add and create additional bookmarks. If I want to create a new folder, think of bookmarks as a set of file folders that you create. They use this file folder icon to help you. If something's an individual page, it's not in a file folder, and the X, the little red circle with the minus, means you're deleting it, and these three bars means that you can actually slide it up or down and change the order. But my favorites menu is what I get to whenever I'm done. Now I'll click on done, or I can create a new folder here. Some people bookmark a lot of web pages. So there's a lot of ways to get things done with technology. One is just keep everything open in your tabs. The other is create bookmarks and add things as bookmarks. The other is add things to a reading list. They all work. That's the great thing about it, is that they all work, and they're all options that you can use for yourself depending on what it is you want to do. Now, when I want to clear out all my tabs, if I want to, because I'm a person that likes to clean things out every so often, if I go down to my bookmark or my tab button here and I tap and hold on it, it gives me the ability to close all 6 tabs. And like I say, it doesn't use up any computer resources, but if I close all 6 tabs, what it does then, it brings me back to my favorites here. Okay, and then I can see my favorites again because I haven't visited anything. But as soon as I start to visit pages, I will get tabs that get created whenever I go to visit a page and navigate around to different pages on the website. So now when I tap on the tabs button, I see I've opened up a couple. If I don't like this tab and I want to get rid of it, I can tap the X, but it's a fast way to do it. And these can be scrolled through very quickly.
Bob, how did you close them all at once?
Sure. That's a little trick. Let me open up a few more. Okay, so let me open up Apple. Let me open up Google. And now when I want to close them, what I do is I go down. Let me bring up my annotate highlighter here. I go down to the tab button right here. That's what this is tabs. And I tap on it, and it'll pop up with a menu. I can start a new tab if I want to. I don't have to look for that X, or I can close all of them if I want to. So I can close all 3 tabs. It wants me to confirm. So I tap close all 3, and now it brings me back to my favorites page screen. And so whenever, again, if you don't have any tabs open, you won't see favorites. But whenever you use an application on an iPhone, it goes back to the last thing you were doing when you were using that application. So if you're reading an email and you stop email and go do something else and you open up email again, it'll go back to the last thing you were doing. If you're looking at a web page, say I was looking at Zoom, and I leave my phone and I turn it off and I turn it back on and I go back to Safari, it'll bring up the Zoom page. As long as it's connected to the internet, it'll bring that up. So it's not like it's always going to open up a brand new, fresh screen for you. Mm-hmm. The operating system does that to make it faster for people to get to things that they were doing last, because their phones sometimes go to sleep. And then when they wake it up, they can go back to what they were doing last. Safari's included with the browser, is the browser that's included with Apple's iPhone, iPad, and Mac. It does save when you connect it to the cloud with bookmarks, tabs, and reading list. Take advantage of text size and reader view. I am going to do one more thing here with my phone. I'm going to show you some the settings for Safari very quickly. So the settings is this icon right here. Okay, so there's 2 ways you can manage, 2 areas you have to be aware of in managing Safari settings. One is in iCloud. So on iCloud, if I click on my Apple ID name and I click on iCloud, one of the options here should be Safari. Yes, that's right here. So I have it turned on in iCloud. What that means is that I am synchronizing everything I do on my phone with the cloud. And so I have my Mac and my iPad set up so that they have Safari turned on with iCloud as well. Now, if I go back to settings, there is a separate settings here for Safari. Let's see if I can find it. I'll just search. You can search for settings too. So if I find Safari here, Safari has some options here. I can use Siri. Whenever you use Siri, you are using Safari. It lets you find things in Safari. I can change my language. I can change my search engine. Whenever you see this arrow tab, you're able to do things. It'll give me suggestions, Safari suggestions, quick website search. I honestly don't know what that does. I haven't worried about it. Preload hit, autofill. That means as you type in, it'll say frequently visited sites. It lets you change, modify favorites. It lets you standard as blocking pop-ups, lets you block certain content, lets you have things in tabs, privacy and security. And then there is one option here, this was what Fred mentioned, where you can use the settings for Safari to clear your history and website data if you want to. So that's another way to clear it. If you can't clear your history from the history tab in the actual Safari app, in the settings for Safari, you can do it. So there's two settings areas. One is in iCloud. The other is in the Safari app, which is way down here for me, I think, somewhere. But yeah, it's in the Safari app. You can see I just have a lot of apps. So if we go down to S, we'll find Safari here, hopefully. No, it's actually in a different section. Well, that's why I search for settings now, because I have too much trouble finding them in the list. But if you search for it in the list, it'll show up, and then you can access it very quickly. So those are some options you have. There's the standard options are set up for what 99% of what people need to do, and so you don't really have to worry about modifying them in any way. But it's just another set of features. So when I go back to Safari, it's going to go back and open up my Zoom page that I was viewing last and show me that, because that's what it does. It goes back to the last thing you were doing. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully all of you are a little better informed about using Safari. It's an application that's just you probably use every day, and maybe you didn't know some of the little tricks in using it and organizing things. And I don't know if I'll ever get to Fred's record of open tabs, but I'm glad to know that it was helpful to help somebody clean something out. Okay. Well, thank you for coming, and look for next week's class, and we'll talk to you again soon. Okay.